Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out on such a beautiful day today. We've had some gorgeous weather, a little bit late for the spring break crowds, but very enjoyable nonetheless. Thank you for turning out for the last of our annual Mondays in March series, where our executive leadership team talks about our plans, how we're doing relative to our plans, what we're thinking about adjustments we may make with current plans, as well as what our plans will probably be in the future. And today, I don't want to rehash too much of what each of those leaders said. I think they did an outstanding job. I missed, in person anyway, the messages delivered by Dr. Jacobs and Ms. Cedro, but I have seen those online. I think they did a great job. I was here for Ms. Sollenberger's presentation, and she did a wonderful job also. So let's do a little bit of a rehash, but what I want to do more than anything else is engage those of you here today and get some impressions from you about what you or people that you work with are thinking about our plans, how you are engaging those plans, how you feel about them, what concerns you may have, and I actually am going to call on some of our leaders. I did warn them by email in advance, but I'm going to call on a few and ask them to make some comments that hopefully will stimulate a further discussion. But let's get into this first. Ms. Sollenberger, to me, talked about the fact that we have a very healthy and successful and growing healthcare enterprise with the healthcare system. We've made great strides. We have great accomplishments that we can point to based on our investments in people, quality, safety, efficiency. We have a number of quality measures, ways that we measure what's happening within our health system that allow us to compare to previous results and results that we want to achieve, as well as comparing ourselves to the national benchmarks that are out there. And we're doing well with those, although I think all of us would acknowledge that we have more work to do to get where we want to be considered the best or among the best. We continue to do a lot of thinking about what the future configuration of our health system should be. And of course, it can't just serve patients. It also has to serve our educational and research needs. And as a public institution, we have to be in the right place relative to the perceived competition with the private providers, hospitals, all sorts of practice arrangements, individuals that are out there. And that requires a lot of thought, particularly in a market that is so dynamic, where much about what occurs today may change in as little as 5 years, particularly with regard to reimbursement. So we have plans, we continue to implement them, monitor them, look at results, and thus far, we believe we're on plan and in the right place relative to the opportunities and challenges that are out there. And of course, each of our EVPs talked about the effective and efficient use of resources. And I'll get more to that in a minute, but it's that concept of value. Everything that we do today is measured against the value produced. A great deal of value being produced in the health system, but a clear need to increase that perception of value with our products and our outcomes over the course of time. So this is Dr. Patricia Rogers, by the way. A lot of you know Dr. Rogers, one of our long-serving members of the faculty, an Osler Scholar, one of our greatest clinical teachers. Here she is in the new pediatrics clinic that's here on Galveston Island. I actually saw her out at dinner on Friday night here, and we were talking a little bit about how well that clinic is doing. To me, a reflection of some of the great planning done by Dr. Richardson and her faculty working in collaboration with the health system. And said, do we want to do some other marketing, new things? She says, no, we're doing so well right now. Give us a chance to catch up. So that was great news. I was very pleased to hear that. And we've done well with clinics like these, extending out into underserved areas, extending our services, enlarging facilities so we can better serve our patients, our educational research needs. So just one example of success being the best in the health system. Okay, Dr. Jacobs talked a lot, at least these are my interpretations, our interpretations in my office, about setting expectations for excellence. And of course, this is something that we continually have to do with the academic enterprise. Much about what's out there as opportunity changes very quickly. And so we have to think about the resources that are available, the people that we have. If we have gaps in terms of people's skills, how we address those through recruitment, and how we best pursue those opportunities, setting the right expectations. Setting expectations is important, particularly in this day and age, because much of what we expect to accomplish and need to accomplish in the academic enterprise can only be done through very vibrant and intense collaboration. So thinking about how we bring people together, we believe, is the key to further success, being the best with the academic enterprise. Dr. Jacobs told some great stories about success in the academic enterprise with people and teams, of teamwork and aligning with the health system, more about planning, not only strategic but tactical planning and pursuing opportunities, great deal of work towards improving their financial status in the academic enterprise, where resources have gotten harder to come by. We've talked many times about how difficult it is today to successfully compete for research funding, how reimbursement for clinical service and the revenue streams that we have for education aren't what they used to be in terms of availability. So very important for the academic enterprise to focus on maintaining financial strength and generating that right return on investment. And back towards the collaboration effort, we have a few department chairs here in the audience. I'm going to call on you guys to be ready. And, you know, I think they would be the first to tell you that, both of you, Dr. Walser, I think they'd be the first to tell you that being a chair also is dynamic in terms of the role played. You know, more in the past, chairs could more concentrate on what was happening within their direct sphere of influence, what was happening with their people, the resources that were available to them, how they were applied, and the program outputs relative to the specific programs of the department. Today, that's not really the case. It really is all about collaboration. You still have to be wise and frugal and smart in terms of investing for the department, but you can't achieve the degree of expected success unless you also work closely in collaboration with the other departments that are pursuing common goals with your department. And so helping our chairs work together more effectively when their time is already 200% subscribed is a big challenge for this place as well as many others. But our chairs are fully engaged in the process, and I think they're doing extraordinarily well, particularly as we compare ourselves to other academic health science centers. The picture here, success in the academic enterprise, these are a couple of our medical students. This is Tiffany Jones on the left and Landon Ogden on the right, and they're engaged to be married in May. They graduate the 1st of June or May 30th this year, and of course they were anxiously awaiting the results of Match Day, which was last week, or 2 weeks ago. And so they pulled their envelopes out, they opened them together with family and friends around, and they both matched to the same place, one of their highly rated, desired spots. So that was great news. And again, indicative of just great outcomes, the sorts of things that we want to achieve. Our graduating students are very competitive when compared to their peers around the country. And if they go at the match process appropriately, are typically very successful in terms of getting what they want and need. So again, a nice example of being the best for a young couple. Okay, Ms. Sadro, I thought, did a really nice job laying out the effort in the institutional support areas in terms of making things work together well, effectively, and efficiently. And to me, the core of her message was that first comes effectiveness. We need to focus on being as effective as we can be in the institutional support areas, supporting the other mission areas in the health system and academic enterprise to help them be as effective and efficient as they can be. If we do that, when we do that, we will be the best, and all of the efficiencies will then begin to accrue. Now, she didn't say that we're not going to pursue efficiency. We are, but she said our first mission is to effectively support the people that are counting on us for their success, and I think that's a great mission. And she went further into some of the integration efforts in business and finance, strategic positioning with regard to business development, working with the health system and the academic leadership to think about what's happening in the market out there, particularly for reimbursement, to think about how we position ourselves appropriately for the changes that are out there on the horizon, all of the changes that we're making and need to make in terms of the institutional support infrastructure, and finally securing the necessary resources to continue to be able to invest for our future. So I thank her very much. I thought she did a stellar job, particularly given her newness at the institution. All right, so what does the best really look like? Being the best, helping define the future of healthcare, working together to work wonders, our vision. And hopefully what you heard through the course of these presentations is we have a lot of the best here already. I think sometimes it's easy to forget about all of the good things or great things that are happening, how much of the efforts that are currently going on here already constitute the best. And so I certainly want us to remember that. Just some pictures to remind us about successes over the past year. The success of the online nursing program ranked best in the country by U.S. News and World Report. The ongoing recognition by the UT Board of Regents of the outstanding educational effort, outstanding educators that we have here. Dr. Geisbert, and then at the bottom on the right, Dr. Cordiella, Dr. Nichols representing all of the great research work that's occurring here. Dr. Thompson, leaders in family medicine, representing good work in outpatient clinics here. The recognition by the National Committee for Quality Assurance relative to their efforts to beat the guidelines for patient-centeredness in their clinics. And then in the middle, the recent recognition as a first hospital in Texas to repeat as at the gold level in terms of resuscitation standards. So again, good work. We all know we have work to do, but that desire to be the best is already manifesting itself here in so many wonderful ways. And I think we all occasionally need to stop and remember that and take pride in the good work that's occurring here. What does it take? And this goes back to those pillars. Now, one of the criticisms I've heard about these presentations is that people are tired of hearing about people, values, strategic management, growth, and resources. That's great news because you got them. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But again, engaged people, a lot of our plans. We need to make sure that everybody who works here understands how they contribute. And everybody does contribute to success. Without everybody's engagement, we can't be successful. What does this imply? Very effective communication. That's a huge issue for us. It's hard. It's hard in a place like this, particularly now when people work in so many different teams, and one person may work in one or two teams rooted in institutional support, one or two that are based in the health system, and one or two that are based in academic enterprise. So where does the communication come from? How do you coordinate it all? How do you avoid redundancy? But unless we can do that well, unless we can communicate well, people won't understand and won't be as engaged, won't be as willing to put forward that effort to be the best individually. Without that, we can't be the best collectively. Of course, competence and skills, and those aren't static. So we know we have some people gaps in terms of skill sets, and many of our recruitment efforts are aimed at filling those gaps. Some of those are new, based on new programs. Some are the result of turnover or retirement. They're there, and we want to be more effective and efficient in terms of filling in those skills gaps. But we also know, again, that skills are not static. We all have to renew our skills over the course of time. And our working environments, even though we may stay in the same field, they changed over the course of time, so we have to stay current. So that goes along with willing to learn new things, being adaptable. So much of our work with people has to do with allowing us to be the best we can be, keeping up with our fields of interest, enhancing our abilities to work with our coworkers, our peers and colleagues, so that we can pursue those goals associated with being the best. Finally, compassion. It's a core value here. I look out at this room, I see a lot of compassion. We feel it. People who visit our campus feel the compassion that we have here. But I think sometimes we may confuse passion with compassion. And not that passion is always bad, it's very good, but if we're over passionate about our individual needs, it's harder to be compassionate about others' needs and their ideas about success. So while it's great to have passion, we all have it, our focus is really on compassion, not only for patients and people who are afflicted with disease and social problems, but also the sort of compassion that allows us to work together most effectively. And that gets to the other core values of respect and integrity and diversity. So anyway, the best people, major part of our goals for the future. Best value, we've talked about this equation. V equals Q over C. What is that? Value equals quality of outcomes over cost, right? Everything we do is being scored relative to the value created. And that's just going to become more of a challenge for us as we go forward. I think we're up to the challenge, but we're going to have to think about not only producing value, but being able to measure the value produced and then be able to demonstrate that value with those measurements over the course of time. So thinking about value as opposed to just quality or just cost, very important to us being able to be successful and secure the resources that we need in the future. Strategic management and growth. You heard a lot about this from Ms. Sadro, Dr. Jacobs, and Ms. Sollenberger. It's really about making good choices. We're fortunate. We have a lot of opportunities. We certainly have challenges. The biggest challenge for us, though, is choosing the best opportunities to pursue. Making those good choices, those best choices based on what we know and the data and information that we can gather so that we can evaluate, make those choices about what we do in the future. That goes towards the business intelligence issue, the big data issue, the predictive analytics issue. We know we need to get better on that front. We are getting better on that front. You heard a little bit about that, about the analytical tools that are being deployed, the data management tools that are being enhanced. So much to do on this front, but much good work occurring. And we plan to be well positioned relative to the ability to gather and use business intelligence to make good decisions in the future. Of course, we also need to be agile. Now, when you think about that word agility, and then you think about academic medical centers, it's a bit of an oxymoron, right? So, but we're going to get better. We have to, and I think we already can demonstrate that we're moving more quickly relative to opportunities. And the good news is the people who oversee our work, particularly the Board of Regents, understand that need for agility. So we're going to be more agile. We're going to need to be over the course of time, and our plans actually incorporate ways that we can make ourselves more able, better able to make faster but better decisions. Finally, transparency. And this isn't about keeping secrets. We know we can't keep secrets. It's really, again, about communication, about helping each other understand what's going on here, providing information to people so that they can see what's happening, understand how their contributions or our contributions as individuals are making a difference, but also to be able to pursue information that may then help seed new ideas. Unless we're transparent and people understand what's happening, what's going on here, we're much less likely to be as innovative as we need to be. So this concept of transparency is something that we want to further explore and pursue over the course of time so that we can become more innovative and creative, or use our creativity more effectively. I stole one of Ms. Sollenberger's slides, really with her permission, but just thinking about this concept of strategic management and demonstrating what's happening. Many of you were here with us during and immediately after Ike. Others of you who weren't know that story very well. I know you saw this slide previously. Ms. Sollenberger showed it. Who of you would have predicted this picture right after Ike? A few, maybe. A few of us are hopelessly optimistic. But look at what we've done. We've really done a phenomenal job thinking about the opportunities that were before us, and we haven't been responsible necessarily for generating those opportunities, like the population growth and the boom in the Texas economy, but we've been opportunistic and agile in being able to pursue those. And look at what it's yielded. Now that translates into marvelous additional opportunities for education, for research, and doing what we're supposed to be doing with regard to healthcare, improving it over the course of time. So we can do it. We are being the best. We just want to stay on that track as we go forward. Best resources, we're all talking about this. It's just harder now to get the resources that we need to be successful than it used to be. That's just a condition of being in this business, of being an academic health science center. Everybody else is in the same boat with us, but we want to be the best at sorting through the challenges and the opportunities and pursuing the best ones, making sure we have the resources that we need to be successful. Each of our EVPs talked a lot about resources and the things that are occurring in their areas to make sure that we're securing the resources that are going to help us be successful. So I won't spend any more time with that, but obviously we have to plan wisely, execute well, demonstrate that value so we can have the best possible access to the resources that we need. All right, so that's my recap. Hopefully that was a reasonable representation of what you heard in the previous 3 presentations. Right now, again, I'd like to just engage the audience. So I promised I would pick on Dr. Waltzer. He's going to go first since he was pointing to Dr. Resto. So he's very articulate, smart fellow, internationally now known for his individual work. But Eric, as you talk to members of your department, not only the faculty but the staff, how are they feeling about our plans? Are they comfortable with them? Do they understand what they are? What advice can you give us relative to plans, putting them into play, moving forward?
I think my faculty staff...
We're going to pass you a microphone if you don't mind.
Can I stand up too?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm taller than you right now.
Good.
I think the radiology department on the whole is pretty comfortable with the plans and how they're moving forward. Our particular enterprise is very highly technologic driven. And I think the biggest headaches that we experience at this time is probably related to IT provision of technology, because we are growing so fast in that regard. Radiology has become quite a bit of a commodity, and in a lot of places, private groups, they have their on-call staff fly to Maui and read the late night films from the US over in Maui. So I thought we could maybe start that. And but no, we've started to outfit radiology units in our faculty's homes and to try to get more flexibility in our hours because, medicine is not an 8 to 5 sport, right? So we need to be able to read and provide services later and in the weekends. And really this all hinges on IT. And I guess one of the questions I would have for you is that, our IT department, although excellent and well outfitted, one of them is behind me, so I got to be careful. They frequently seem very challenged by time and resources. So have we ever done anything like outsourcing some of our IT needs for high-tech departments such as ours?
Yeah, thank you very much, and great comments, and you hit on everything: people, value, strategic management and growth, and resources. The IT resource is probably, among all the resources we have, actually the most constrained today. And that's our own fault, if you will, because we've committed so much to expansion, very rapid expansion. Some of that, construction too, some of it's just in response to the construction post-Ike mitigation. As you mentioned, even outside radiology, everything's connected to the backbone, to the web. Everything requires some sort of IT connection. If not machines, then people. And so effectively deploying the IT resource to help us keep up with everything that's happening, plan, move into new buildings, make sure everything's working, keep up with current technology, pursue the strategic investments is tough. Plus the EMR, EHR, and you've heard me say before that optimizing the use of the Epic electronic record is the highest priority we have. Our physicians just have to be more comfortable than they are today. They have to be able to be more productive. The record can't be a productivity, a negative factor on productivity. Minimize that as much as we can. So they have a lot on their plates. There is outsourcing that occurs. I know we've outsourced various systems like PeopleSoft, Hyperion, certainly Epic, elements that we're addressing, because as a department chair, you know well the challenge we have. Some of these issues are relatively short term, weeks, months, maybe a year or two, and then they go away. And so we don't want to bring on people with that special skill set and then have to retrain them or, heaven forbid, let them go. So I think I'll let Todd address the issue in more detail, Mr. Leach being the CIO, but you're exactly right. This is one of the things that requires a lot of thought, a lot of engagement, a lot of planning, and it's always a challenge. So, Todd?
Well, I can't thank you enough for making it about IT on the first question. I think I owe you something. But we'll save that for another time. But as Dr. Callender said, I think that those are the same. We sort of have the same concerns on the minds of our staff as well. It's like how do we balance all these IT needs? And one of the things I think we love about being in IT is that we get that vantage point to see all the needs. The problem is there are a ton of needs. I mean, we've got a highly energetic, innovative group of leaders and staff at UTMB, and keeping up with all of you is challenging, let alone keeping up with the students, who are also way out there from a technology standpoint. They're ahead of us in many cases. So the challenge for us is really, we could outsource even more. We carry a contractor load of about 50 contractors, which is about 1/7 of our total population that support the department. We have a number of services actually outsourced, like the telephones and other things. And we know we need to build capacity, but there's also a challenge in how do you, there are some financial limitations, obviously. We've got to make better choices about where we invest and make sure we're investing in the right places. But certainly we're in this transition period, sort of post-EMR, which is we need to make sure our systems are actually usable and user-friendly. We've got to extend more mobile and electronic interactions to our patients and our students and other constituents, because that's what's being demanded. And at the same time, we've got this really phenomenal growth that you've seen on these slides that all has a technology component as well. So it's a combination in my mind of building some extra capacity, but also in my mind being judicious about the capacity we're using and making sure we're really focused on the most important things to focus on, because there's just going to be too much to do it all.
Yeah, thank you. But Eric, advice, Todd, leadership and IT's put together a governance structure to engage users. to try to help prioritize efforts, talk about timelines, extent of investments, try to be fair. If you have a decision that goes against something that's important to you, it's not always considered fair, but we try to make it as fair as we can be. Do you have any specific advice about that governance structure, making those choices, things you'd like for us to consider?
Well, I think it's, I don't know if people know, but I've noticed that the IT prioritization process has been sort of set apart from capital, and that makes it a lot easier as a chair. It makes it a lot easier as a chair to prioritize your IT with Todd in the room, and so I think that's been a healthy change.
Okay,
To
very
separate
good.
those two revenues.
So continue that and just make sure that we're carefully looking at needs and timelines and programmatic outcomes and make sure it all balances across the board.
Yeah, and some of the IT initiatives that I've seen do seem to dovetail well with outsourcing or getting other consultant firms to do, because they are highly specialized and very short term. So that seems to be like that would be helpful
Okay,
as well.
very good, thank you. You want to pass the microphone to your right, to Dr. Resto? Dr. Resto, you're very much engaged as a department chair, not only in your own department, but looking at the activities within the health system, thinking about efficiencies and effectiveness. What's a perspective that you have today on where we are with our plans and how we're thinking about the future? Are we getting it right? What suggestions do you have to improve the process?
Well, first and foremost on my mind is the fact that I probably should have been a radiologist. Maui sounds pretty good. I think we're going in the right direction. I mean, we have differing forces that are just forcing our hand, if you will. There's the growth that we need to engage to maintain the activities that we have. And clearly, that's something that we're effectively deploying. Your numbers, substantiate that. Certainly in the Department of Otolaryngology, that holds true. It holds true in the surgical enterprise when we look at our OR numbers. There's also a tremendous amount of pressure regarding cost control. I think the opportunities, as you suggest, are great. I think that the engagements we've taken in terms of trying to assess contracts and trying to really sort of examine what we do and how we do it, I think are going to be important places to look at. I guess in a way of generating a question, is there any thought in your mind about developing perhaps task force teams or tactical teams that could perhaps in a very quick fashion and very directed fashion more effectively run through our organizational operations to identify these areas and quickly attack them as areas of cost control and cost improvement?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I was just reading an email from Ms. Sadro that she sent out to our unit CFOs this weekend that was addressing that, this value analysis question, looking for opportunity, looking at least initially purchasing decisions and processing, but extending beyond those into choices about what we purchase. So, Ms. Sadro, could I get you to maybe comment on that, if you don't mind? I know you talked a little bit about this and purchasing in general, but Dr. Resto raises this important point of how do we push value analysis down into the organization?
So one of the comments that the email that Dr. Callender is referring to is still being new. Over the last week, I had 2 contracts hit my desk that were $6 million and $50 million. Those kind of get CFO's attention. So I said, okay, let's step back here a little bit and let's talk about, educate me a little bit about what the process is to go through and evaluate those. And in the health system, there are great value analysis teams that go on, not directly related to those contracts, but related to value analysis. And what I wasn't sure about, and I believe has been confirmed today, is the finance folks' involvement with that. There's some and some not. So the question is, how do we engage again in terms of getting all the parties at the table that can help in that decision-making process? How do we make sure that there are finance folks saying, yeah, it makes business sense, doesn't override the clinical need or the need for quality, but it does inform decision-making processes. And I've asked for my folks to make sure that they're engaged where that's appropriate. Value analysis teams, and Deb can speak much better to what she has set up in the health system certainly than I can, but value analysis teams in my previous lives have been extremely important when they have that multidisciplinary group of people together that can really talk about all of the elements and make sure that the cost savings are obtained, not at the sacrifice of quality and taking care of our patients. Does that help?
Does me. Are you okay with that, Vicente? I think the important thing is if you all as chairs see opportunities for us to engage faculty and people who work with faculty more effectively, we'd like to hear about that. Because you're exactly right. This is what's going to determine success or failure in a large part in the future, how we make choices about what we use. Those are sometimes tough. Dr. Jacobs talked about this, an element of the AE 2020 plan, as I remember, addressed this. One of the other things that I've seen that I think is marvelous is now the basic science chairs are meeting regularly on a monthly basis to talk about a range of issues. But among those, I believe, based on what I've heard, are some value analysis questions about how we go at certain things, the processes that we use, and how we might make those more efficient. And of course, if we can do that, that makes more resources available to invest in actual research efforts as opposed to the infrastructure that supports them. So that's good news too. So anyway, thank you very much. Dr. Bardwaj, you're sitting down here. You're a little newer to the institution. You've been in a lot of great places. Thoughts from you, suggestions from you on where we are in terms of planning plans for the future and where we can improve?
I think we are in the right direction. We are moving forward with our major missions, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Clearly, the communication between the health system and the academic enterprise could be vastly improved.
Okay.
I think the so-called boats need to be aligned in the same direction as far as common goals and strategies. I think that communication piece between the academic enterprise and the health system could be greatly enhanced. Service line concepts, for example, need to be aligned with development of departments and as well as the scholarly activities that go on. I think one of the major things that at least I hear from my faculty is there's a angst as far as the academic piece in terms of scholarly activities and the unfunded research that is ongoing. And a clear strategy as far as diminishing this deficit that we have is a common theme that I hear from my faculty.
Yeah, thank you very much. And, great thoughts. I think the comment about working together more effectively goes towards those comments I was making about transparency and communication. There's a desire by all parties to make that happen. The biggest challenge is how do you do that most efficiently? Because time commitments for our people are so challenging. And the other thing is we've got a lot of balls in the air. And although maybe over the course of time as we get through the last of this post-Ike activity and getting these new big facilities open, some of that pressure will go away. There's a lot of things to juggle. So working with our leaders from the health system, the academic enterprise, institutional support, to more effectively and efficiently engage in consideration of opportunities, a big challenge for us and others. But from my perspective anyway, we've made progress. We just still have a lot of work to do. We continue to think about all of research. I think the criticism that's often lobbed at me is that I don't like research and we're not investing in it, and that's not true at all. The question is, what areas, what priorities, how much do we invest? We have to do unfunded research because that's what drives innovation. but how much can we afford to do and how is it guided? So a lot of things to consider. Again, I think AE 2020 is taking on these topics and people are engaged, but we need to move along and make some commitments relative to the overall research effort as well as what sorts of research are most appropriate as priorities and how do we fund those over the course of time and then measure the outcomes appropriately. Not all research, in fact, most of it, certain forms, doesn't deliver a tangible result, but the results are beneficial. So how do we quantitate that? How do we describe the value? How do we get the mix right as we go forward? So big challenges, but again, we're not on our own taking these on, and we've got really smart people that will help us sort through these things. Let me shift over to the health system. Deb, I'll just, I know you have a lot of people and areas that are reporting to you. You guys do a great job in terms of communicating with different constituencies in the health system. What are you hearing about the plans, people's involvement with them, understanding? Are we getting it to the right level? Are the plans, is the planning process working for our people in the health system?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've heard more recently from our staff has been the relay messages are helping connect people with what's happening. With the number of facility openings that we've had in the last several months and that we'll have in the next year, it's hard to keep up with what's happening and where is that clinic opening and why are we doing that. So I think the relay messages are helping connect people back to that. I think the things I hear at breakfast and when I shadow, questions folks have for us are, we're growing quite a bit, and how are we going to recruit the workforce that we need to match the growth that we're having? Particularly with the Victory Lakes campus opening, we know that we will have folks on this campus who will want to move to that campus, which is great, but then how do we recruit the workforce back to the island to sustain the tremendous growth we've had here within the hospital over the last several years?
Yeah, workforce a huge issue for us. The war for talent, we've discussed previously. Much of our strategy, many of our high-level tactics associated with maintaining a great workforce, being able to continue to attract staff members to all of our locations and make sure that they're current with their skills. A lot of things underway, but we can't guarantee success. So we have to stay engaged with the efforts, monitor the outcomes, continue to think about what adjustments can be made and should be made, and be willing to move forward and take a little risk to assure that we have the best possible outcomes with regard to workforce. Did I see Ann O'Connell come in? There she is. Okay, right in front of me. Sorry, Ann. So you obviously oversee the outpatient enterprise. And people who work in the outlying clinics away from the main campus are a little less connected physically. The communications challenges are significantly different. So are we connecting? What should we be doing? What can we be doing better to engage our people who are working in those outlying clinics?
Thank you, Dr. Callender. Our outlying clinics do feel disconnected. To Deb's point, I think our relay communication has really helped, especially in our regional maternal clinics that are spread throughout East Texas, as well as our new Angleton-Danbury clinics. We have 3 new clinics down there with the possibility of even more. So the more we can appeal broadly about what UTMB is doing, I think that will really help. We have a tendency, I hear from employees, to be campus-centric. Mm-hmm. And so I think that our employees and our outlying clinics would really appreciate if we do something that's campus-centric, that we also think about them and think about what impact it will have on them, right? If we think about giving out, I don't know, gift certificates for coffee or to the bookstore, well, how are you going to use that if you're working in the McAllen Clinic, right? So I think overall they're feeling really connected. I think the regional maternal integration into the health system has been very positive for them. They feel, I think, part of the health system family, I hope. And I think that the Angleton-Danbury integration has gone very, very well. They're, at least on the clinic side, they're feeling very connected to us. So I'm hearing good things, just we could be less campus-centric.
Suggestions, other things that the executive leadership can do? We've gone out a little bit. It seems to be appreciated when we go. At the same time, we're always concerned about imposing on busy clinic schedules. So are there other things that we could be doing to more effectively engage those workers?
So I think about things like today is National Doctors Day. And so how do we reach out to the many physicians that are not here on campus today? We have Nurses Day celebration coming up in May. And so let's try to think more broadly about how we help them celebrate in their remote locations. I think the shadowing that the leaders are doing is a huge success. I don't think that employees feel that it's an imposition. Deb does a lot of shadowing. I do a lot of shadowing. The ambulatory leaders do a lot of shadowing and rounding. And I think for the most part, it's very much appreciated. I did hear from one dermatologist, though, when I showed up in my scrubs, he said, "You're not fooling me for a minute. You're an administrator." Other than that, I think they like having us in their clinics. I think it's important for me when I'm shadowing and rounding in clinics, I get to hear firsthand the challenges that employees are having scheduling an appointment, asking the Ebola questions. I get to hear from physician leaders about broken pieces of equipment, and they will literally take you into a room and show you the broken equipment so that you know that it needs to be replaced. So I think those things, the more we can get out of our offices and get out of our suits and get out actually into all of our areas, both in our off-campus inpatient facilities as well as our ambulatory facilities, I think as leaders, I think that's where we're really going to pick up the truth and the true pulse of the organization.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Ojo, what are you hearing? You're engaged with a very select group of people who do amazing work under extraordinarily challenging conditions. Connecting with that group is always a huge challenge for us, always has been. But do our plans make sense to the people that you're working with?
I was hoping Owen Murray will answer that, but historically, we do these rounds, Veronica and I, and we go around and meet with the staff. And the staff at HG, and this is their words, they use this expression a lot, and they feel like the stepchildren. And in doing these rounds, when we go around, we're trying to change that culture. We're very engaged, and they do appreciate the fact that we come around and ask questions. We also hear things like they would like to see more of leadership presence. Deb has been gracious to honor us with her presence a few times, but they'd like to see Donna, they'd like to see you, and I had to drag Dr. Jacobs, blackmail him, and he eventually showed up. But I'm sorry I'm calling people out, but that's what my staff is saying they want to see more of. And I can remember Dr. L.Callender, it's been a while. And so they would like to see things like that. Maybe hopefully we can get rid of this perception, and you guys know perception is reality. Get rid of this perception where they feel like nobody cares about them, but things like that would certainly help.
Yeah, great, thank you. And we'll do that. The biggest challenge with that population from my perspective is things that we can, if you will, control with our other employees, like compensation, working conditions, some direct labor arrangements, we can't control with our CMC folks. They're in the hands of the legislature or predominantly in control of our colleagues who run the TDCJ. And so it creates special reach and connection challenges that we need to continue to try to address. I know Dr. Murray works really hard at this. And I purposely skipped over you. I apologize. But I wanted to hear from Ojo about things that he's hearing and appreciate that feedback and those suggestions. Other people, we have a few minutes left. I know we had a couple of things that came in from our EAC. Tilly Clark, I think you may have one or two things, and I'd be happy to take any other suggestions or advice.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This one came in. It says, when Governor Abbott was sworn in, he said he wanted to see a smaller state government and announced a 10% cut in his office budget. Is there a state mandate to cut? And also, what does this mean for our employees?
So is there a state mandate to cut, and is it going to impact our employees? It gets to the resource issue, the connection issue, the value issue, people issue, all of those things. And I think Dr. Raymer's here. I know I saw him talking to there he is, Dr. Watson earlier. Dr. Raymer, you want to respond to this one in terms of a mandate to make cuts?
I'll be very blunt on this. The governor always issues a budget. The legislature promptly discounts it. The legislature is the appropriating body in the state. They may look at that for some guidelines. Every governor, when he comes into office, fulfills a campaign promise by decreasing the size of his own administrative offices. More symbolic and good on a campaign promise, small government, all of that. But they decrease those offices by simply transferring the employees to another agency in most cases. And honestly, the legislature is going to make all the decisions about the budget. Actually, the budget that they're working on right now has increases for state agencies, not decreases. Actually, for instance, in the TDCJ budget, they are looking at restoring some positions in that budget. It's not over with yet, but that's a good sign. They're also, in other areas of state government, looking at restoring services. One that's certainly important to us here is the maternal child health programs. There's a huge push to put more money into women's health care in Texas. So it's not all about cutting. It's about casting the budget in a different light. And the governor's budget is always issued outlines of budget priorities, but when you get in Austin, everybody has their own turf. And the legislature will tell you they are the appropriators. They make the decision, not the governor. The governor can certainly veto the budget, but he has very, very little control over the amount of money they put into certain areas. So I haven't heard about budget cuts. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Raymer. And, that may also get back to this thing that we're talking about with the efficiency and the $100 million reduction in expenses over the next 5 or 6 years. That's not something that's mandated by the state. That's something that to us is mandated by what we see for reimbursement and the availability of resources that support our mission work. And what we've said commonly, I think you heard this in each of the EVP's messages, is this is not about layoffs, reductions in force. This is really about driving efficiency, looking at operations, how things process together, and choosing to do things more effectively. Now, does that mean that some people won't be displaced by program changes? No, I can't guarantee that. But you've also heard us talk about the war for talent. Anybody that we send away is a huge loss for the institution. So what we're dedicated to do is if we have people who are displaced by program changes, working with them to try to get them retrained, we have lots of other openings in the institution. And we think we need to work hard at making it easier for people to move around in the institution as opposed to trying to send them away. Because at some point, or as we go forward, it's harder and harder to get people into places like this. The war for talent is heating up. So hopefully that addresses the concern, too, about reductions in force. That's not in our plans. Dr. Watson, I think you had some comments from the School of Nursing. I think you may have sent us an email and said there were some thoughts that you wanted to share or you would share. Sorry, I neglected that earlier.
I was giving up hope that you would ever call on me, but the Lord provides. Well, the first thing I wanted to say is we welcomed back the class of 1965 for homecoming, and the sad news was that only 4 came back out of a class of 69. But the good news is that one of them made a $2 million bequest to the School of Nursing, and is, so that was really nice. But the School of Nursing continues to produce many people who can provide all of the staffing needs that you were talking about for the health system. Now, we do know that you have a preference for people with experience, but we also know that because of loyalty to UTMB, we have a sacred obligation to provide our new graduates with that experience. So I hope you will all hire our wonderful new graduates and let them make wonderful contributions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Watson. Dr. Protas, any comments you'd like to make? Tough act to follow. Yeah, that's true.
Well, we didn't get a $2 million endowment. We have had an extraordinary expansion in our schools, in the School of Nursing and the School of Health Professions. And one of the things we have noticed is you are not hiring our graduates. So we have this incredible pool of talent, and they are going elsewhere and making lots of other health centers look great. So again, I will second that comment. Please do hire our grads.
Thank you, Dr. Protas and Dr. Watson. Okay, well, thank you all for engaging and sort of closing thoughts. Again, I think there are many examples here in individuals, in groups, of being the best. And what I want us to do every day is to, if we can, stop and ask, did I make my best contribution today? How do I do that as we go forward? How do I help the people around me do their best? If we can stay focused on that, I think we'll enhance our chances for even greater success. And the other thing is, you've heard a lot about our plans. They're detailed, they're far-reaching. They range from the general, described in the road ahead, to the very specific, the strategic plans for information, technology, information resources, those sorts of things with a lot of detail. But they're not perfect. You've heard today expressions of concern, questions, uncertainty, ambiguity. We'll always have those, and plans will never perfectly address them. But the way that we will be the best is when we do what we've done today. Share those concerns, engage them positively, use the marvelous skills and talents of the great people we have here today and we will have in the future. When we do that, I can pretty much guarantee that we'll be right there at the top with the best. So thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for helping us develop these plans. And please stay engaged with us as we go forward and take on those challenges.
UTMB Health, working together to work wonders.